I've just stopped talking during this intro part because really I'm just pinning a comment. Okay, I'm trying to capture what I call him Dan, what Eli's story is, but we're gonna get it in language. Just keep it like that. And then just know, for anyone watching, that this is going to be a wide-ranging talk. I expect it to cover the grounds of gender identity, sexual identity, police brutality, addiction, depression, friendship. This is someone who is extremely unique. Went from, coming into college fairly conservative, having grown up in sort of like a wealthy home of art collectors and professionals, became sort of like the token queer person on campus, started to identify himself as a woman at times. We were on a very conservative campus, so definitely had some encounters with the police that I remember as one of his best friends. He has dated men, has dated women. He lives in Berlin. He is, on top of all of those things I mentioned, one of the smartest and most like meticulously educated people I know. So by the time he got to college and met me, he was already sort of like well versed in Middle English, a medieval scholar. While he was in school, in college, and being educated, received, more citations, which are sort of academic accolades, than basically anyone I knew. And he was so fascinating in that he was able to manage, I think, a very strong double life in college, in the sense that I think academically he was perceived as rigorous, and socially he was having a blast. So really the surface, there's so much to this person who's one of my favorite people on earth and one of my best friends, and I'm lucky to have some time where we talk about him. So
Hey,
Hi, Ku. That's perfect.
is this
Hi,
better?
Ku, you're so
Okay.
handsome and tan.
Yes.
I love the outfit you
It's just,
chose. I can't see myself because I have a halo light on. Do I look okay?
you look great. So, okay, I wanted to do it like
No,
this.
you can't do it like that. No, that's not.
Okay, does this work? Is this better?
Yeah, no, it's not. You have to put it straight up.
Curses. Okay, because I wanted to be able to just rest it. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, try to find another way to rest it so you're comfortable.
Okay.
Cool. Well, once you get comfortable, I'll
Yes.
tell you.
Continue.
I have
Tell me.
printed out my questions for you.
Oh my God.
But
All
I just
right,
want to
get me.
start. I know. I
Okay.
just want to start, and like just to let you know, these questions come out of like my personal experience, but also like browsing your LinkedIn, browsing your captions on your Instagram.
Oh
Like
shit.
I tried to
Okay,
do
good.
legit recon research on you because this is going to be a professional interview, despite our
Oh really?
personal connection. But
Okay, well, I just,
yeah,
the thing is, I personally just wanted, I'm here to like have a dialogue, and I'm happy that you have notes because, yeah,
yeah.
I'm happy to yeah.
Um, so the other thing I wanted, so while I'm like getting ready for this and in the bathroom, I'm also thinking like you played a significant role in why I broke up with my why I broke up with my college boyfriend. Because I think you exposed me to this like whole, I mean, you and I would be like hardcore
Yeah.
snuggling, and I'd be like, wait, he's
Mm.
gay. And then there was this whole like, we were best friends, yada, yada. I'm putting it really simply, but like,
Yeah, I know, but like
let's go back
it's
to
deeper than
college.
that. I mean,
Let's go back to college.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, so I definitely think that this was like an explorative part of my sexual identity. I mean, no, firstly, I've always I initially came out as bisexual to my mom and to my family, and that was my signification for myself. But then the response was very negative.
Like, what did they
And
say?
I just, well, I think there's a lot of biphobia. I think my mom was like, you should be one thing or the other thing. You know, she was also the type of woman who is like, being gay is good for everyone else, but not good for our family. And she has a very strong sense of like reproduction or bust is like the human reason to exist.
Yes.
You know, and she's like, I think your mom I mean, I think your mom is like more religious and like reads the Bible and like,
I don't think
you
she
know what I
reads
mean?
the
She's like,
Bible,
your
but
mom
she
is like
reads
way
like prayer
different,
books.
but
Yeah.
they're traditional. Let's just say we both have a very traditional mom. My mother is not religious at all. I mean, you would never catch her reading Psalms if she were upset,
Right.
you know, like, she doesn't use, she thinks religion is evil and like has done worse things for humanity. But she does believe that the sexuality of the body, uh, it comes before gender and sexuality. So I mean, or gender and
Yeah.
sexual orientation.
So she was kind of that's an
So she
important
believes in
part. She
reproduction.
was because also she's like heavily steeped in the art world. So she has her own set of like gay men that are part of her life, right?
I don't know, you know what? Not really. You know, you would think so, but I mean, she was like really involved with the opera and the patronage of it, and there's a lot of people who are gay there too. So I mean, she has gay friendships, but you know, she's also like living in the Midwest, so she doesn't really, and she also frequents like Virginia and the South, so her network is not as diverse as mine.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that's one of the things coming from Ohio. Is just the thing. It's like predominantly my sister's friends are all prominently white. I mean, there's a few black people that went to our schools, you know, 'cause it's one of those private schools, and there's
Right.
a whole history. You know, it's just all connected systemically.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you
but yeah, I
consider, by the
mean,
way, did you consider going back to Ohio for quarantine?
yeah, I did. Oh, the thing is that I was like, I thought that we couldn't travel because of the travel ban in Europe, whatever, like silly things like that Trump said. But you know, so I was like, kind of like, oh shit, I'm stuck here anyway. I'm okay with the travel being stuck here, but it would be really nice to be with family. I was thinking,
Yeah.
just because you know, it would be just nice to be on the beach or to go to the lake or to just to be in the forest and to not have to pay for anything and to just
Yeah.
you know, just like chill, which is like my life in America, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I wanted to leave and explore and to kind of jump out of my like privilege bubble,
Yeah.
which I'm really grateful for. But it's also, it can suck the, um, it can suck the ambition out of people sometimes,
Berlin.
and you see it all the time.
Are you talking about Berlin
But
or being an expat, or what can suck the ambition out of people?
living with your family
Oh, I
who are very privileged people.
yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like you can just sit at home and you just like literally there's no issue. Like you mess up one room, it gets cleaned up the
Right.
next time you're in that room. But you know, it's like magic
Right.
living around.
Oh my
But
god.
it's not. I mean, it's like,
Is this Taj
so
now?
it's not. And it's,
Oh my god, I'm so happy. I want to see some like random dark
yeah. Oh my God,
friends.
Taja! I ran into her serendipitously at the Alhambra when I was visiting,
So nice.
in like,
All right, so
and
first
we
you
just
came out.
ran into each other.
So first you came out as bi to your parents, and that was like your first identification. And how did like what happened next, and how did it feel within you? Like, were you exploring being bi? Did you feel like that's what you were, what you felt like?
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is that I sort of have a stronger physical sexual attraction towards men, but I have deep emotional connection and sexual bonds with women as well. And I have moments where I feel very much like bisexual and both. But I lean more towards the gay side, and most people perceive me as gay. So I'm very strong, even though I can sit here all day and say I'm bi, but most people will probably just say I'm gay or whatever. And in the end, people will just assume I'm one way or the other. You know, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't like demand people to change their.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. I'm in that sense of an activism. I'm not like trying to demand how people. Yeah, I should, because it feels good when, for the first time in forever, my mom finally said that I was bi. That was like a huge for
What
her.
was the context?
Well, we were talking about like living in America and having intersectional identity. So I identify as like white, Hispanic, Jewish, and like queer, bisexual, whatever. And my mom, I don't know, we were just talking about.
You are all those things. It's so true.
Right, right, right. I know. And the thing is that I'm also, and partly, I don't know, because of how my skin color looks, is like I also can pass as Latino or Arab just by my
Right.
looks. And and when I'm being mishandled by the police or whatever, or even just, for a traffic violation, it always there's can sometimes be these layers of like racism or anti-Semitism. It can be multiple things, and I can sometimes I can't identify like why someone hates you. They just do,
Yeah, yeah,
or they
yeah.
just don't. They have a prejudice against. But it usually happens. I mean, sometimes people when I get pulled over speeding at home, and I'm in like one of my parents' cars, they'll ask me like why I have access to this car, or like they'll be suspicious of like why I'm here, or when I really recognize in this struggle against authority and police brutality, like the police are always just trying to mess with wonder. To me, it's like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you in this space? Like, do you have the right to be here?
Mhm.
These sort of questions like always come up whenever I have an interaction with the police,
Yeah.
I feel.
And what
And
kinds of
it's
things,
happened too many.
like what made you feel safe in those moments? What was like your badge you pulled out, if anything?
Docility. Well, it's like the badge you pull out, you say no sir, yes sir. You change the etiquette. Like and it's so funny. It's not funny. It's terrible. I mean, this is what Black mothers are teaching their kids like constantly.
Right.
And these are the conversations they have to have as at family meetings. It's like kind of it's terrifying.
I mean, it's what
But
we were
my
taught.
parents.
Like it started being taught to the white community. Like you get pulled over by the police, you like up your politeness to the nth. You say yes, sir. You say yes. You
Right, right,
act timid. You act
right.
scared. But you act in it.
True. I mean, and I usually do that, to be fair. But I've been arrested a couple, like 3 times, and
Really?
the first time was no, but like nothing. I was never charged formally with anything.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And the one time that I think that was I was arrested for resisting arrest,
Was that at
and the school. That was at Dartmouth, and the campus security SNS called the Hanover police, and the Hanover police came into my bedroom whilst I was sleeping naked without my contacts, and like violently pulled me out of
Yes, I
bed, like
remember.
broke my collarbone, smashed my face in, and I refused to cooperate in all senses of the word. They tried to clothe me, and I was like, I refuse. I'm trying to go to bed. This is like an invasion of my rights. I didn't have my contacts on
Who
even.
hadn't that
And in
started?
the end, it ended.
Hadn't that started with an issue? Because Julana's asking, hadn't that started with an issue about gender and bathrooms? Wasn't it like you were using like a female bathroom because like you felt you were partly female, something like that?
Well, I was exploring transgender identity,
Yeah.
and I was exploring that side of myself because what's so interesting about drag is its performative nature, and I felt that just by changing my outfits or just like showing off my collarbones or just wearing a certain outfit that would sort of provoke people, it was like a provocateur moment in my life. But the truth is, I really do identify as male.
Right.
So I think my experience is more cis male, but though I do have a very strong feminine quality and connection vibe, which is just, unique to how I am. So I'm sympathetic to the queer cause. But my feelings about, yeah. But I mean, it wasn't, there was a moment at Dartmouth where I had like a trans issue. Like the woman didn't like that I was in the bathroom, which was right across the hall from my room. So really, it was an easy thing for me, and less so like me trying to assert my identity or something. But
Wait, what's an
yeah, I
ED
mean that's kind of
thing? What's an ED thing?
sorry, what?
Didn't you just say it was for me? It was more of an ED thing than trying to assert my or easy thing. Is that what you said?
Oh yeah, so yeah, it was like it was just me trying to like use the bathroom
Okay.
that was close to
Right,
my
right, right.
room. I am like I'm not like but I don't know. Dartmouth has a strong like problem with sexual assault, and the gender thing is sorority, fraternity. It's very orthodox, traditional, weird in a way. You know what I mean? I can understand why there's some conservative girls who would be bitchy about it, even though I just went there for 2 seconds.
Right. Right.
Nevertheless,
Right.
I mean, there were stupid little aggressions like this, but this is different. They just wanted me to be observed by the Dick's house or the psychiatry people
I
there
also
because
think it's
they got
important. Like, I feel like in the scenario that you're mentioning, it's also important because this happens all the time. Like when George Floyd was arrested, like he was high on fentanyl and meth, I think it was. So it's like,
yeah, something
when
like that.
you got that, when you had that,
I wasn't.
you were on something.
I was sober. I was like, no, no, no. I was going to bed. I had a paper,
Okay,
I had an essay.
fine.
I had an exam the next day, so I was going to bed.
It stands to include the topic of drug use and addiction in the topic of police and how they
Yeah,
trans.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I think that the queer experience and I think drug abuse are comorbid entities, and I think and also there's a lot of psychiatric overlap
Yeah,
between uh, gay people and mental illness. And I mean, yeah, I mean this. So the resisting arrest episode actually precipitated the whole diagnosis of bipolar 2 disorder for me, which is like the bipolar where you do not reach full manic episode, but you reach something called hypomania, and you go between hypomania and depression. But hypomania is, as you know, as you know well, this like elated state of where your ideas are the most buoyant and your feelings are the most, where you're excited, but you don't, you go to sleep with very few hours and you wake up very fast and you stay up for very long and you just think you are invincible, and you get this and you have a lot of great ideas but they're not very implementable, or you have trouble, you start many things, you don't finish them, or you do more sexual high risk behaviors, you do more drug use or things like whatever. I mean,
yeah,
you're intense, and it can sometimes end in like suicide or exhaustion and things like that. And yeah, so and it's regulated with medication, like you take Lamictal, which is a mood stabilizer, and all sorts of things.
yeah,
But for me, I stopped taking medication for that
yeah.
when I moved to Europe. I stopped taking all sort of medication. So I don't take any medication like pharmaceutically. Like when I was at Dartmouth, I literally maybe had 8 or 10 prescriptions. So I had like
Right.
a pill for every feeling.
No,
And then that I tried to pick.
I remember getting in bed with you and you just being like, I have like a muscle relaxer, and you're like, do you want it? And I was like, why would I want it? You're like, it just makes your muscles feel like really good. And I was like, well, my muscles already feel pretty good. And you're like, just take it. It's good. It feels good.
I don't know. I don't know. I think, well, I don't know. Maybe I was just in a more lush year phase. I think I just wanted to like escape. Also, let's be real. Like Dartmouth is really boring. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's really hard. And when you don't belong to the sorority or frat culture, which is the predominant majority, it's kind of like, what do you do? What else does one do?
Did you have like,
So I feel like
did you feel like you approached the frat system and like were interested in it to any extent? Like, would you have joined
no,
into it to any extent?
I'm
Yeah.
not. I hate all male boy dominated spaces. They give me the willies. Because I feel like I don't know, for some reason they freak me out a bit. I feel like I like having the females vibe in there too. And I also it's too conformist for my taste. I don't like to I barely like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm too non-conformist for that shit. I just don't care
Yeah.
enough to learn, but I mean,
Did you feel in
it
high
does
school
create,
that you were nonconformist? In high school, did you already feel that you were nonconformist and radical in some ways?
I don't know. It's hard to be radical when you have the privilege that I have. It's easier to be radical in a very fake way, in some sense. But I think, I mean, if I gave everything up and I sold everything and I became like a monk, and I don't know, there could be ways I could redistribute
So you're saying,
the wealth, and
are you saying that
I don't know, but
wealth keeps someone from being radical?
it could. I don't know. I don't want to. The thing is it probably could. I mean, for example, I do think that we need to have less oligarchy in America. We need to. The rich need to pay more, and I mean, wealth and inheritance taxes are terrifying. to people in my family, and I mean, I don't like them either. And it's like, but I wonder how do you pay for shit? Like, how do you pay for like healthcare for
Yeah.
everybody and like things that I've learned to love in Germany?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've totally become socialist in a sense, like compared to, or, you know, I've seen the socialist system work, and I love that I don't have to worry about that I won't be able to pay for my medical bills in Germany.
Right. Like even when you're
It's
out of
really a
work or
simple
between
pleasure,
jobs, you know that you're covered. Don't
right?
worry about it.
Yeah, there is this, and you know, I think that there's also really easy. I think Germany makes it very easy. Um, And I don't know, I just feel very free here. From the simple pleasures of just like being able to walk down the street with beer in your hand, it's just like there's these simple, small things.
Hmm.
And I mean, there is not free speech here, and it's interesting in a way, but but there's been a lot of growth, and I think how the Germans have dealt with the Holocaust and that whole history through a program called Vergangenheitsbewältigung, which means overcoming the past. It's a program that was sort of it's sort of like a social cultural program of denazification in the sense that it's about overcoming the past and facing it. That means claiming all the tragedies as true, and to you know, there's a lot of overcoming,
Yeah.
facing your evils,
Do you think some
and accepting them as part of your history. And I love, and I think, and they think the Germans have done this really well, and they preserve everything. And I've seen the Sachsenhausen Konzentrationslager, which is a concentration camp in Oranienburg, which is like an hour away from Germany. It's where they did the experiments on people. I actually went with Rachel Heckman there.
Yeah.
Um,
I saw your review
and it
of her
was
this morning on LinkedIn, by the way. I thought that was very nice that you wrote her such a nice reference.
on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
of
love
course.
that.
I mean,
I
you got to
love seeing
elevate
people's
people.
references that they write, almost more so than I like reading their references.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is great. I use it to for the freelancing for data science, and
Yeah.
it's such a. I work mostly with headhunters, and there's such. I love that the industry that I work in has its own system for connecting people, because I feel like there's always someone trying to work to get me something.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, it's sometimes you have to. A lot of freelancing is about like self promotion, which can be difficult for
So
me because it's exhausting.
you started a new role in March 2020, right? So that's like right when quarantine started as a senior
Corona,
digital analytics consultant. Is that
yeah, yeah.
yeah. How is that been going
That,
well?
it's been difficult. So everything was starting over Zoom. So I mean, I was freelancing and did all. I was coming out of a project, and then I wanted to, and then there was this consulting firm that I really liked, Digital Motion, and it's small Berlin office. But they also have offices in Hamburg and Düsseldorf. And I really liked the team. Everyone was really cool, and they wanted me to join and help them with data science projects, and just to get some and do some more like web
Yeah.
tracking and do all sorts of stuff, you know. I was just curious to not have to deal basically the same shit I do on a freelance basis, but I didn't have to source my own clients.
Right.
I figured,
Yeah.
and I thought this could be like a fun little. And you know, you get to, it's like you get to work your German skills, etc.
Nice.
But it's been during quarantine, so I haven't really officially met anyone.
Yeah.
So it's all
That's
been
awesome.
Zoom, and which is awkward.
Yeah.
And it's sort of and that makes it difficult in a way. But I've worked
Yeah.
remotely with clients and different things, and it's not new to me, but it is a little bit when you have to manage a conference call auf Deutsch, and there's like 6 different boxes, and no one in Germany uses their camera. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but like it's like no one does it here, and I'm okay with it because I don't want to either. I feel very Germanified
Yeah.
in that sense. Like I fuck that. But at the same time, it's really hard to do these sort of conferences when you can't see people talking.
Yeah.
And because I'm not fluent, I need every detail. Like I need the lips, the eyes, the body language to understand. So I don't know. It was a kind of a disaster, and I had to change. And we had to like move to English, which was really awkward. But I think everyone was fine.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, but you have to.
I want to go back because you were telling a story. You were basically like, you told us the story of your first arrest. And then like we didn't get to the second and third. And like
No, I don't want to go into the second and third. I don't want to go into the second and third.
don't
I
go into
think
the
the
second
first
and
and
third, but what I want to ask you is like, how are police different for you, for your experience as like a queer male in Berlin versus in America?
oh, it's amazing. Really different. The police in Berlin are so nice and chill. I've gone to the police station like once or twice to help my friend whose laptop was stolen. I
Okay.
mean, like petty theft like that. And they're super nice and they're super attractive too. Like I would love to have all the police. Police. I know, and then you see them at like Erste Mai and like May Day. You see them out, and like they're just so cute. I don't know. You would think they were hot too. I know you. But nevertheless, they are police, and then they are not there to help you necessarily. They are, and they're not. You just have to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Never speak to them without, a German native speaker or speaking with a lawyer beforehand. In general, is a good rule of thumb.
You mean
But
like
yeah,
you
I
wouldn't
think
speak to them, like you wouldn't go and report the laptop issue on your own. You would bring a native German speaker.
no, I would. I mean, that is something different. I would, but I think I feel safe enough to do that. I don't know, but in like greater
You
areas,
were
no.
getting if you were getting tracked for something, like if they came to you.
Okay, let's say you got something stolen by someone who sells drugs. Let's say you were in Görlitzer Park or whatever, and you went to buy drugs from someone. They sell weed there or something, and it's like an open secret. Most Berliners do it. Some don't. I mean, most Berliners don't. I don't think even use the weed drug from the park. It's kind of shitty, and no one should use it. But tourists do. I don't know. You're a tourist. You go into Berlin, and you have some weird, shady interaction, and for some reason they stole your laptop or
Yeah.
something and you would like to report the crime, and I mean for some reason so that can be sort of a complicated issue
Right.
because it's like because you were there for what reason. I mean, in America, if you told them what the truth of what happened, they might even charge you with like
Right.
trying to buy weed or something. It's really hard. They make it very difficult to I don't know. You just have to be careful with the police. They're tricky, and they're there just to
Yeah.
arrest people. I mean,
I
I
remember,
know this
yeah.
from a fact.
You were one of the first
Yeah.
people, you were one of the first people in my life where I have echoes in my mind sometimes of like you walking across campus and making some comment about how you were scared of the police. And I like it comes back to me as we hear about police brutality with black people here in the US. Like I remember you saying that to me, that you were scared, and I forget how much we would talk about it, but like what were your feelings back then, and like when would you be more scared? And I remember somehow you walking up the hill from like the river, and you were wearing some outfit that was like a little bit scandalous, and like I
Mm.
don't know if you felt you were followed by them, or like what was your experience?
Well, the thing is that I remember the Hanover Police Department had a boner for me, that you could say. Um, so sometimes I remember like where they would be like they would always try to I don't know. They would just. There wasn't times where I've had multiple interactions with them, and I've heard them say, "We've dealt with this kid before. Get him." Da, 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 da. Like I don't know. It's just
Okay.
I don't know. There's been so many things. There's so much trauma there. Like I don't even want to talk about it.
Right.
But blue lives do not matter. Okay. Like I am not a fan of the police. And what's funny or ironic is that I feel like my sister's family, they have strong bonds. They're very important conservative family, and they have strong bonds with the police and the military, and it just feels weird sometimes bringing it up.
Yeah.
It's so weird how you can be related to people who like truly love you and everything, and still like support things that are totally antithetical to my existence sometimes. But it's not. But I don't know. They don't see it that way.
Like
It's interesting. I don't know.
do you see the police in the US as antithetical to your existence?
Well, no, I mean, well, no. I mean, sometimes police are important and necessary. I mean, there needs to be something, but I do think they need to be they're too militarized
Yeah.
and they have way too much funding for what they do. And I think they don't really know how to do things properly. I mean, America's a scary place. I mean, there's guns everywhere. I think I love that there's no guns in Europe. At least you might get shanked or something. Or you might get like stabbed with scissors or something, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But the likelihood of that someone's gonna pull out an AR-15 and shoot everyone is so
That is
low, and I love
amazing,
that.
huh?
It feels so nice.
Let's talk about Berlin and the party scene because, like, when I was last in Berlin, we went to Berghain. So tell people what Berghain is, what it means to you and your community.
Okay, so Berghain is a club. It's a techno, it's like the cathedral of techno, and it's a Berlin cultural heritage site. So they have tax exempted income or something. So it's very selective, and there's this door policy, and no one really knows what the door policy is, but it's a touch of conformity, like look wearing black and looking sort of like the Berlin aesthetic, whatever that is. But there it is something. I mean, it's usually like leather and fetish friendly clothing. It's a very sex positive environment. But it has the best techno in the world, and it's connected to the Oscultonach label, which has its roots in like a gay club in Berlin in the 80s and 90s or whatever. And it's just a wonderful place. I spent many days there, and I actually have I have like I have a spreadsheet where I actually have it's also an abandoned I guess it's an abandoned Soviet power plant or something, and so it's this brutalist vibe, and it's a very beautiful place. It's a freaking monument. It's a monument to like that era and time period. And it's just an interesting cultural zeitgeist, and the people there are so fascinating. And it's also a lot about body expression and sex positivity. I really love that. I feel very comfortable now being naked and being without clothes and shirt. And, I feel like in the United States, I had more self-hatred or something.
Right.
Or there was more superficiality. But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
For something, it's been a confidence. So yeah, my spreadsheet. So my spreadsheet is basically, it shows you my acceptances and rejections to Berghain. So I just basically, I mined most of the data from my Google Maps data. So I looked at where I was on every weekend in my phone's history. And then I was able to create a spreadsheet, and I have a statistic. I can show you.
Yeah, show us. And what did you learn from it?
I've learned that when I go alone, the likelihood of me getting in is higher than if I go with someone else or if I bring a friend. So these are some of the key takeaways. But this is what the data looks like. Oh, do you see it?
I only saw like a little bit. It's hard to see details.
So Berghain acceptances and rejections 2017, 2020. And you basically see a timeline, and in 1 means you get in, 0 means you don't get in. So everything where you see a drop is I didn't get in. And it's just silly, but it's kind of cool to see how popular I was back in over time, and then to see an overall acceptance and rejection rate is kind of funny. So I get in like 92%.
Like there's that area with more activity. Like what's your analysis of that area?
Well, it was a time period where I was bringing friends to Berghain and I wasn't getting in as much. And maybe I wasn't cool looking, or, sometimes you get rejected for no reason. I mean, I've gone at least 62 times or something, according to my statistics.
Interesting.
And it's like shit, you'd expect that the door people would know me or whatever, but it's not really, nothing's set in stone.
When you think
so it always brings up some tension.
When you think of like your best times there, like your best times, like what happens during your best times there that really light your soul up?
Oh my gosh, when I have my cathartic, ecstatic experiences. So that means when I reach a state in my mind where my body is actively moving and dancing, so I'm getting an exercise cardio. Plus, on top of that, I'm getting therapeutic release from naming. So in my head, I am like in another dimension. So I'm naming feelings. I'm thinking about things. I'm conjuring up childhood memories. I'm remembering people. I'm not even there, and I spend most of my time silent. And I go alone. So I mean, it's a very individualistic. It's like my therapy, I swear. But I don't talk to a third person objective. Yeah.
It is
which I think would be
therapy.
interesting.
I mean, if I think about that in the context of like you've been able to get off all your meds, you're like doing better than ever, right? Like you're happier.
I 1,000%.
Right?
I'm happier, but 100%. I'm a lot happier in Germany, and I think what keeps me at bay is loneliness, and I think this is just something that Berlin is. It's a lonely I think all urban spaces are really lonely, but I think humanity is at its loneliest time right now. And I think it has a lot to do with our social media usage and being constantly connected and having very superficial moments of connection. And I don't know.
What does connection
And then the
feel like to you?
coronavirus.
Like, what is connection? Like, what's a good connecting moment for you? Like, is it like a friend sleeping over and you're like snuggling, ordering breakfast? Like, what feels real and good to you that you're missing when you feel lonely?
Yeah, I mean, I love the camaraderie, and I also just love being with people, and I love silence as well. I mean, I think some of the best relationships I have with people, including you, is that we can just be together and not really speak necessarily, but we'll be working
Yeah.
together. You know what I mean? We can be silent together,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the hallmarks of a good companion, soulmate type.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I really do think that the pursuit of platonic love is really a great ideal to
Yes, you
have.
always believed in that
And
Montaigne, right?
Montaigne, yeah, exactly. Michel de Montaigne, I love him. He's my favorite essayist. He's the creator of the essay, and it's a great book on friendship,
Right. You said that.
d'amity. But I would say it's a really short read, 10, 20, 30 pages, and it's about his ideas about platonic love and
Yeah.
his connection with his male writer friend Boissy, and he's just basically a love letter to his friend. And his friend donated him his entire library before he died. And you can look in how his essay is like a reader's digest of the melancholia he feels for his friend. So he's like reading the books that he got from Boissy and quoting it throughout his texts, and
Mm-hmm.
it's weaving this narrative of loss. It's a very beautiful
Yeah.
idea unto itself. But I think there's these high ideals of friendship and love, which I really think we should pursue as our foundational experience. However, I am a strong hedonist and I am very erotic and sexual.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a primary partner for me would be someone I have extremely good sexual chemistry with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessarily it's not a necessary necessity, I guess. I'm thinking, but I really love my platonic friends too. But
What if
there's something about it's hard for me. My love language is physical. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to the ideal is to find someone who's platonic and erotically fulfills you, I guess.
yeah.
But it's hard to find both in one person.
When you think of the times in your life when you've been in love, like, do you count how many times do you feel like you've been in love? Is it with men? Is it with women? Is it with groups? Um,
Okay, so I feel like yeah, I have tried polyamory. Yes. Actually, what do I currently think of myself? I think of myself as polyamory. I think I've evolved from my monogamous traditional
yeah.
ideas of love could be to a more polyamorous thing. You know, and what that means is you just have to manage your jealousy. So it's about jealousy management, expectation management.
I like
It's
that.
also
Yeah.
about checking in with yourself. It's like, what do you really want out of this? In the end, it's safer to just be like, I want their flesh and I want to keep it at an arm's length and make it more casual or no strings attached. I don't know. People have their own ways of dealing with it. But I, for example, when I have great, amazing sexual chemistry with someone, I get attached more easily, or I get more. I like have. I don't know. I
Do you,
get feelings more easily.
is that poor jealousy management in your opinion, in your definition? The things you're feeling?
Well, you know, here's the thing. The first thing is if you want to become polyamorous, you need to first have a good conversation with yourself about how you don't possess people. You don't own the other person's body. You don't own what they can do with themselves. I think one of the problems with monogamy is that there is this like sort of unspoken, I own you, you own me, and that's why we stay monogamous, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Or we have this social contract together. It's a higher ideal. We both want to fuck everyone else, but we aren't fucking anyone else. We love each other. I don't know, this exclusivity. I mean, you first need to just remove that from your head and not make that a priority for yourself. And I think also you need to keep your options open and keep dating people. Sometimes it feels really nice just to be with one person, but I think you really shouldn't just limit yourself, because if you're both polyamorous and the other person is having like threesomes all the time or having multiple sexual partners, you need to think about your health and about how you feel about the situation. And
Yeah.
it just be very clear that you need to you need to cool it off with the other person and sort of take some time to yourself. Because as soon as you take some time to yourself and you meet someone else, your obsessive ideas for the other will subside,
So
I
love.
guess.
So we talked about polyamory. Like, what is your conception of you having been in love? and with whom and when and how many quote times, if you think about it in time metrics?
Well, I would say that there have been like several moments. The thing is about love is just never created or destroyed. I really don't think that like it never ends really when you have like a feeling of love for someone. Even if it does, even though if it does not burn or if it's not a shared feeling or I don't know. I feel love for you, for example. Like I think you're one of my first
Yeah,
loves for sure.
you're one of my loves for
Um, easy, like easy. I mean, a lot of it was a lot of the sexual tension build up for many years of just like I mean, you know, it's all that build up of like being in bed together but never fucking or like keeping it like,
yeah.
are you gay? Are you not gay? Or, but this feels right, you know, like so these little moments of being hard in the morning with you know, like it's just like very intimate like moments, you know. It's just I feel like it's really lovely to be in love with people, and you've been a very important person in my life for that. And it's lovely, cool.
I want to hear. I
But
want to hear just brief. I mean, keep talking about
yeah,
love, but also what happened with that woman that you were very in love with. You were like dating, like you were in a committed thing.
yeah, I really,
Yeah.
yeah, with Ava, she's lovely. Like we met at Oxford, at this Oxford ball,
Yeah.
um, and she was at first we like kind of didn't speak, and she's Dutch,
Yeah.
and I'm not a big fan of the Dutch. I mean, I like her a lot, but I went to the Netherlands and Amsterdam. I
You
love
did.
weed, and
Okay. You took.
I should love it. I should love it.
You went to the
But
name.
then I went during Sinterklaas. I went during Sinterklaas, which is the racist festival with the Zwarte Piet. You know, where like they have Santa, and then they have like all these Aryan blonde hair, blue eyed people in blackface. Like I'm talking about pumpkinified blackface, like red lips and like Welcome to the Colonies, Africa shit. Like white people have blackface running around everywhere. And I'm
That's
like,
a
what
lot.
the fuck is going on here?
Yeah. And what did she?
And then everyone's
To that.
um I don't know. I don't think we talked about it, but we did talk about it. But I mean, she obviously thinks it's racist. And but again, it's hard. These people are like, but it's traditional. It's culture. It's what we've done
Yeah.
for da 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 da. Da. And I'm like, bitch.
Right.
I mean, or the people I speak to, I'm like, listen, that's blackface. I mean, this looks like minstrelsy, like with the red lips and okay. And then they've tried to circle back, or they tried to backpedal and be like, oh, well, actually, it's soot on their face because they're delivering presents down the chimney, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, no, no. They look like minstrel show people with their little black shoe polish and their matted hair. It's
I
terrible.
need to ask you what happened. What happened when quarantine started to Berkheim?
Well, I was there, Jan. The last time I went was, I think, like January 13th or something. I don't know. I can check my number, but whatever. And I apparently there was some COVID there breakout there
Really?
during that time too. I mean, that was in the pipeline.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I never felt
So it's
sick or anything. I mean,
it's not open right now.
no, I don't think it's going to open until next year. Which is too bad because one of the reasons why I live here is for that cathartic release place, you know, and the fact that it's not available to me is like, Ohio, or I'm like, being with my family in Florida or Ohio sounds a lot more.
That's how I feel about
even though I
Equinox.
love my freedom here. What?
That's how I feel about Equinox.
What happened?
Like, why would I live in San Francisco if I can't go to Equinox?
Cool. I mean, do you still live in San Francisco?
I'm in Seattle now with my boyfriend, so we're in like more of like a Zen garden setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A rustic environment.
Yeah.
I love Oregon. I think it's a great place. I think that I like it's like a good meeting place between California, you know, lazy day.
Oregon's beautiful too.
Yeah, it's like a good lazy day vibe, but it's my dad's family immigrated to
Oh, really?
Seattle when they moved from Israel.
Literature has always been so important to you. Okay, so I remember being in college with you, and we used to say gender, sexuality, identity. Like we were into that stuff like well before the public was into it. Um,
I agree.
we were like so hardcore into all of that stuff. So like,
I was like a drag queen before it was like a. I was doing like
absolutely.
drag before it was a thing. I know, so true. I actually, yeah. I love academia and I love knowledge sharing, and it's like I wanted to be a professor for so long. But then I decided that I wanted to maybe apply my knowledge instead of curating content, like, or curating the past, which I think is what academics do. They curate it and teach it, and it's just all about that. And I love that idea, but it's also, I would love to use my talents for, like, apply them to real world projects.
You also
But to
wanted
be
to make,
fair, it's mostly,
you also were concerned about income. Like you didn't want to be, I remember when you were making the decision to like move away from academics, you were like, I want to have an income. I want to have a livelihood. I don't want to be like a trust fund kind of person.
yeah, I mean, it's nice. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have a reason to wake up every day, Mark.
Yeah, good.
That's what it is. I mean, if you can just, if affluenza is real, I've seen it, and it's not pretty. It is like you don't have any. There's no reason. You wake up in the morning. Every day is the same as the previous, and it's just, I don't know. And the next thing you know, you're 45 and you haven't done anything great or interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have, by being in an environment where you're sort of challenged to build your own wealth, or you know try your hand at something new,
Mm-hmm.
builds a lot of grit and, I guess,
Yeah.
persistence and determination.
Which artists inspire you most right now? And just for a backdrop,
Art.
he's thinking like Dan is, I call you Dan. That's my nickname for you. Most
That's
people
okay.
call you Eli.
Most Europeans and most of my European, so in the past 5 years, anyone who I've met in the past 5 years calls me Eli
All right. So let's go with
or Ellie.
So
But I mean, but my name is actually Daniel Alicia. It's a weird thing. It's
yeah.
like a composite name, but my mom was really jazzed about. But they didn't want me to get beat up at school, so they were like, let's choose one or the other.
Alicia was a Jewish name for that you were given, right? Alicia is like your
Well, it's my
connection to
grandfather's.
Judaism.
It's my grandfather. Alicia is my grandfather's name.
Okay.
And my grandfather was an engineer. I think he was from Haifa in Israel, and he was also in the military. He fought in all the wars in Israel,
Nice.
and he was part of like the Harel unit, which like was like special operations for. I mean, it's very militaristic and intense, but yeah, he also worked. He has like these patents. I never got to meet him, but he has all these patents for like engineering, and worked with NASA and Boeing
I didn't
in
know.
the United States.
So anyway, so
Yeah, I never
Eli's
got to meet him.
context in art is like, you were one of the most sort of like art collectory people I knew in college. You were like actively interested in art, both contemporary.
Well, I mean, it comes from my parents.
Yeah.
It comes from my parents. I mean, but I'm not the only kid. I mean, Victoria Stockman's family also, they love art too. And I mean, I got to meet a lot of people like me in that sense. Like a lot of people whose parents collected, and I went to Biennale and all that stuff. And it was cool to meet people like that, because from Ohio, I'm one of the only ones, or I know, I don't, you don't really meet people you meet people with way more money elsewhere, not in Ohio necessarily, or everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just
But
was
anyway,
but
art for you.
nevertheless, art collecting is lovely. I really want to support artists that are, up and coming, but also BIPOC as well. I think, Brent Drummond, our mutual friend, he only buys art that is made by female minorities.
Nice.
And I think this is like an interesting, and this is what really cool is really good about activism. This is like what I think is good activism. Like I think this idea of redistributing wealth, meaning like you support businesses of people of color and people who are not from your community, and you try to and instead of make it an incestuous thing, you only buy your friend's stuff, and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
or you only buy
It's a really great.
what your family made.
Yeah, I'm going to interview.
And
I'm going to attempt to interview Brent on that topic because I really like that he's doing that.
Brent's a better person to talk to
Yeah.
about that for sure. Yeah.
But artists that have inspired you, especially along your path of, through sexuality and gender and depression and recovery from addictions, all sorts of things. Like, who are the artists that really like spoke to moments in your path?
Artists that I love. I mean, I really, gosh, I love. Well, the thing is, I really love architecture as well. So I've been really inspired lately by like David Chipperfield. I mean, it's like kind of a. It's not a. It's he's more of an architect, but he did the Bodes Museum or the Neues Museum, I think, in Berlin, which is just a beautiful place. And I just have such an admiration for architects right now
Hmm.
and the beautiful buildings. But artists that I particularly love, I mean, right now I haven't been to a museum in a while,
Yeah.
which because of the corona, which is really devastating. But I mean, I love all the classics artists as well. I love Hieronymus Bosch,
Hmm.
we were talking about, I think you and I, and I love um, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Like I love David Katz or Daniel. I don't remember his first name, but Katz is really cool. I love this artist who does these balls on top of each other.
Yeah.
I think her name is like Annie Morris, I think. And I'm really interested in learning more about contemporary art. I just haven't had the time to really invest that. I mean, most of my heroes are like literary and or
Yeah. And
writers
I
of
do
some
want to
sort.
talk to you about
I don't know.
literature. Like what have you been loving this past year reading? What are your favorites?
Okay, so I have some
Yeah.
books. Okay, so I mean, I've been reading this, Circe.
I have
Have you read it?
so Julana gifted it to me and I read like the first 30 pages. It's amazing. It's so fun. It's like all
Yeah, I
mythology.
think it's fun.
It's great.
Yeah, it's sort of. I think it's really cool. I love the anachronism, and I love how she's like, it's a mock of the Odyssey, or using the same character, the personae, but it's sort of like totally different. And I love that it's anachronistic and it's from like the tortoise view of Circe,
Yeah.
who's really to me not as that interesting. So it's interesting to see how they're pulling it together. And I think Madeline Miller is a really good author. I love it's well researched. There haven't been moments where I'm like, this woman's dumb, or
I
I
love how
disagree
you
with the
read Circe
mythology,
and
or I
you're
think it's
like
stupid.
an expert on the material because you really are. You've been like invested in Greek
Yeah, I
mythology
love
for
it.
like 20 years.
Yeah, for I studied Latin and Greek for, like in the schools for 15 to 20 years. Yeah. So I mean, I do have a really strong background in that,
Yeah.
and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm on like page 90 or something, or 130 or something,
Yeah.
and I like
Nice.
it.
Good.
But we'll see where that goes. It's just a novel, and then of course I was reading. I have this too, Frederick Douglass, narrative the life of Frederick Douglass, the American slaves,
How
his
did you get
narrative.
that copy?
It's
Like out of curiosity, like how do you get your books? Did that come from like a bookstore online? Where did you get that from?
I just ordered it online, but I mean I think I've just ordered it online
Yeah.
somehow. But I definitely love. This is like one of my favorite books of all time. And it talks about his experience as a slave, and it's beautiful. It's existential. It's about Africana humanism. It's magnificent, and it's also dramatic too. He's a bit dramatic. He's a drama. He's full of drama and passion. He
Yeah.
has orator spirit, and beautiful language, and it's easy to read and it's fast, and you really get a good picture about how shitty slavery
Have
is.
you read James
Um,
Baldwin?
no. Can you
Oh
remind
my
me what
God.
he talks about?
Please read anything by James Baldwin.
Okay. Give me something to read and I'll look into it for sure.
What is the one that I loved so much? I'll send it to you after this talk.
Yeah, okay. Another thing I've been reading, or what's interesting is I also gotten the mail recently, my essential Kierkegaard. You
Yeah.
know
Yeah,
Kierkegaard?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And what's interesting about Kierkegaard for me is that Frederick Douglass and he were writing kind of for contemporaries. And then this is such a point of like privilege and the difference between two different people's lives. So this dude,
What are you learning?
Kierkegaard,
What
he's
are
a
you learning from Kierkegaard's thoughts?
well, Kierkegaard is the father of Christian existentialism. And he is the product of white privilege, like incarnate. What's interesting, so more things about him. So he talks about how there's like three different spheres of life. There's like the aesthetic sphere that we all live in, and it's the time when we are full of emotion, and it's like life is an opera, and we're just living we're living on a manic level, and we have no purpose or consistency, and all man must choose a moment where they move from the aesthetic sphere into the ethical sphere, which he describes as we choose a profession, we choose a moment of
Mm-hmm.
consistency in rationality, you know,
Yeah.
the movement into doing something. And we have and as white and as people, we have infinite possibility for the future.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to choose the anxiety. We need to get over the anxiety of choosing something. And it's just very simple. And that's the existential Christian. And then he's Christian existential because he says that this is not going into just choosing a path isn't enough. In order to get full use of life, we need to also make the leap into faith.
Is
So he
that the
has
third
this
sphere?
whole like,
Is faith the
yeah,
third
something like
sphere?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, like yeah, and it's like and it's a reprieve from all, and it's a reprieve from the existential question of like why do we exist, da, 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 da. And it sort of points to God is the only reason we can feel that, you know.
Yeah.
So we have to take the leap of faith into believing something that is absurd like a God. So he's a Christian existentialist, and what I find so fascinating about having gotten his book at the same time as the Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
Greg. Incident. So it's for me, it's sort of interesting because one of the papers I wrote a long time ago was comparing the two figures,
Interesting.
and and what's interesting is that they wrote kind of during the same, they're contemporaries, but they have the complete different privilege,
Mm-hmm.
and it really does. But they have very similar ideas of existentialism and about human possibility and actualizing your potential. And it's interesting because Douglas speaks from the margin of freedom, and whereas Kierkegaard is speaking very much in the white tower,
Center.
ivory tower. But it's even worse than that. I mean, his family, the reason why he could sit around all day and write, or stand around all day, Kierkegaard was known to have stood up and write. To write, he apparently his family indirectly benefited from the slave trade, the African slave
Got
trade,
it.
the transatlantic.
Lucas wants to know if you still have that paper, and I was thinking the same. It would be cool to read. Did you write that at
Yeah,
Oxford
of
or
course.
in college?
Oh, I wrote this at Dartmouth with it's about Africana humanism and existential thought, and I basically just talk about how it's interesting to see that the two have so much in common. I mean, I really do think they're intellectually very
Yeah.
similar, and I mean, Kierkegaard's a genius in tremendous way, but like he uses pseudonymous authorship, so he plays with authorship. So he has different author names for himself, and each author has kind of their own personality and persona. Like Johannes Climacus is one of the authors of one of his works, but it's really all Kierkegaard. But he uses different names. He's a very interesting
Yeah.
guy. He plays with authorship, but he writes really kind of technically. Like he's in that same genre as Hegelian philosophy. So sometimes you read it and you're kind of like scratching your head
Right.
because there's like a system logic to it. But sometimes it's really narrative and interesting, almost biblical when he's talking or doing an exegesis on like the Bible. So I find Kierkegaard really interesting in that regard. But I think it's even more interesting when you read him in concert with Douglas. And it's so cool to see two men talking about very similar things, but one is from such a privileged background versus the other. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting to
I'm gonna
digest them
post that
together.
connection. And you know, I think if you find the paper, send it to me and I'll pass it along to Lucas. There's this feature on Instagram where we get cut off, and so we have a minute and a half left. I just want to ask you, like, what would you tell, you know, your 20-year-old self if you had to give him some advice?
Oh gosh. Well, for one thing, I think it would be good. It's embarrassing, but it's like I think I would have told myself to be more of a internship, like try to gain more experience when you're younger, and not rely too much on the fact that you don't need to work.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
I would try to be like, I wish I could have been a little bit hungrier when I was younger, because I think it would have maybe given me some job experience, and I didn't have to build that up later in
Yeah.
life. But it's
But you're
fine.
doing
I think
great. Yeah.
It's
You had
fine.
all that
It's
personal
fine.
time.
So far, so good.
I want to
I mean,
thank you
I got
so
all my
much.
books.
Yeah, look at those beautiful books. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your experience so honestly. I love you, and
Yeah,
I'll
of
talk to you
course.
soon.
Love you too.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Bye.
Bye. Thanks from everyone.